my name is Chantel from Kalamazoo, Michigan. We've come to Lesson 3, Monuments of His Grace. Our memory verse is found in Joshua chapter 4, verses 23 and 24, and it states, "For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan for you until you passed over, as the Lord your God did it to the Red Sea, which he dried up for us until we passed over, so that all the peoples of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever." God bless you.
The book of Joshua presents a pivotal moment in Israel's life: the crossing of the Jordan and the command to set up a monument of 12 stones. God not only intended to open the way to the promised land, but also to leave a visible and permanent testimony of his intervention. These stones were not mere decorative objects, but signs pointing to a greater reality: God's faithfulness and his power manifested on behalf of his people. The Hebrew term ot sign carries deep meaning. Throughout Scripture, signs have always served as reminders of the relationship between God and his people. From the rainbow as a sign of the covenant with Noah to the Sabbath as a sign of sanctification and creation, God used these symbols to keep alive the memory of his work. Thus, the monument in the Jordan was not an end in itself, but a constant invitation to remember and respond. The emphasis on remembrance is central. It was not a passive exercise of memory, but an active one. To remember in order to obey, to remember in order to pass on the faith to the next generation, and to remember in order not to fall into the forgetfulness that so often led Israel astray. In other words, God desired that his people live in continual awareness of his faithfulness. Welcome, my name is Augusto Palacios, and this is Studying the Lesson. Tuesday, October 14th. Remember. The command to raise 12 stones in the Jordan had a dual meaning. First, as a visible testimony of God's power, and second, as a pedagogical tool to instruct future generations. The stones were a tangible reminder that the crossing of the Jordan was not achieved by military might or human ability, but solely by divine intervention. Every time someone looked at those stones, they were to recognize the hand of God. The Hebrew word zikaron, translated as memorial, goes beyond mere remembrance. It is linked to the root zakar, to remember, which in Scripture always implies action. To remember God is to respond with obedience, gratitude, and faithfulness. Thus, this monument was not simply a historical record, but a call to live in accordance with what those stones represented: the Lord's faithfulness and the need to depend entirely on him. The stones were also meant to provoke questions in future generations. What do these stones mean to you? Here we see a vital pedagogical principle. Faith is not inherited automatically, but must be personally embraced. Each generation had to rediscover the meaning of God's mighty acts and make them their own, avoiding the empty traditionalism that repeats practices without understanding their purpose. The connection between these stones and other biblical signs runs deep. Just as the blood on the doorpost during Passover served as a sign of salvation, and the Sabbath as a sign of covenant and creation, the monument at the Jordan pointed to God's victory over the impossible. In this way, every sign points to the same truth: God is faithful and expects from his people an active, obedient faith. The danger of forgetfulness was ever present in Israel's history. When later generations forgot what God had done, idolatry, rebellion, and covenant unfaithfulness followed. For that reason, God established tangible reminders, stones, memorials, signs, to keep faith alive. Active remembrance thus becomes both a shield against spiritual amnesia and a means of preserving the identity of God's people. For us today, the lesson is clear. We too need to raise stones of remembrance in our spiritual lives. These are not literal stones, but personal experiences where we acknowledge God's work in our lives. As we remember how the Lord has led us, our faith is strengthened, and we bear living testimony to his faithfulness. The memory of past wonders becomes the foundation for future trust. The passage also emphasizes that faith must be dynamic. It is not enough to repeat what our spiritual forebears did, we must personally experience God's grace and power. The stones in the Jordan invited every Israelite to ask, "What do these stones mean to me?" In the same way, God's mighty acts in our lives only gain true meaning when we make them our own, when His work becomes part of our personal story. Finally, the stones in the Jordan foreshadow a far greater memorial, the cross of Christ. Just as those stones recalled an act of salvation in Israel's history, the cross recalls and proclaims the eternal salvation accomplished in Jesus. As Israel was called to look at the stones and not forget, we are called to look to the cross, to keep faith alive, and to respond with gratitude and obedience to the God who still performs wonders for His people. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and X. Sunday to Friday you'll find 2 daily questions posted at 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. together. We'll review what we've learned in each study. Every comment counts and adds depth to our reflection. Join the conversation and share your thoughts with the community.